What if you were a raindrop? Not just a drop of water, but something sacred. Something small, fragile, yet full of quiet power. Suspended between heaven and earth, you wait. Held in a place you didn't choose, formed from things you didn't control. You didn't ask to be made, and you don't get to decide where you'll fall. All you know is that something in you is stirring. There is a moment approaching, a shift, a letting go. You cling to the cloud that created you, trembling at the edge. The wind whispers, the sky waits, and still you hesitate. Because the fall is unknown. Because the sky is high and the ground is far, and there is no map for what comes next. You don't know if you'll land on soft earth or a cold rooftop. You don't know if your arrival will bring life or go unnoticed. But still, you must fall. Not because you're certain, but because you cannot stay. This is where the story of every soul begins, in the moment of release. The moment we stop holding on to what is safe and instead surrender to what might be. Falling is not weakness, it is courage. It is the decision to move without all the answers. It is saying yes to the risk of being real in a world that offers no guarantees. You fall. You do not break. You fall because growth demands motion, because staying still is no longer an option, because deep inside you know the cloud that once cradled you is no longer your home. You're being called forward, and sometimes forward feels like falling. Sometimes progress feels like losing control. But you are not meant to be stuck. You are made for motion, for becoming, for impact. In that fall, there is something sacred. You are no longer suspended, but free. The air rushes past you, time stretches, and for a moment, you are weightless between what was and what will be. And isn't that where most of us live? Somewhere between our past and our future, trying to trust the in-between. Trying to breathe through the uncertainty, to believe that even if we don't know the destination, we are still moving towards something that matters. How many times in your life have you stood at the edge of change, of truth, of love? How many times have you felt the fear of letting go and done it anyway? That was your fall. That was your bravery. Falling is not failure, it is transformation. You are not created to stay in the clouds. You are not born to remain untouched. You are made to fall into the world and change it, even if only in a small, quiet way. Maybe your landing will feed a flower. Maybe it will cool a burning cheek. Maybe no one will see it, but it will matter. Because what matters is not where you fall, but that you did. To live is to fall again and again, into truth, into love, into grief, into wonder. To let life catch you and reshape you. To let go of what no longer fits. To surrender what you cannot control. This is not weakness. This is the sacred art of being alive. So what if you were a raindrop? Would you fear the fall, or would you embrace it? Would you resist the change, or would you trust the process? Would you cling to what is known, or would you leap fully, deeply, without knowing where you'll land? Because the fall is not the end. It is the beginning of something beautiful. You've let go. You've surrendered to the fall. And now you move. You are no longer suspended in stillness. You are in motion. Not entirely by choice, but by design. You tumble through space, carried by currents you cannot see, pulled by a gravity you do not control. And yet, you do not resist. There is no turning back. The cloud that once held you is gone, fading into memory. You have begun the journey. It is not chaos. It only feels that way at first. The wind twists, the air rushes past, and everything moves faster than you can understand. But slowly, gently, you begin to feel it. Rhythm, direction, flow. You are not falling aimlessly. You are being carried. In life, We often mistake motion for confusion. We fear change because it feels like losing control. But what if movement is not disorder? What if it's alignment? What if the wind knows more than we do? What if, when we stop trying to steer everything, we actually begin to arrive? You drift into streams, onto leaves, down branches. You touch stone, bark, feather, skin. Each surface greets you and changes you. You are no longer the same drop that began this fall. You are a little less yourself and a little more the world. Every interaction softens you, reshapes you, stretches you beyond your borders. You are influenced. You are altered. You are becoming something new. We try so hard to stay unchanged, to stay whole in the way we began. But maybe the point was never to stay the same. Maybe we are supposed to allow ourselves to be reshaped by the lives we touch, by the people we meet, by the pain we endure, by the love we receive. You join others along the way. You are not alone. You become part of a stream, a current, a force of many. You flow together, side by side, not knowing where you're going, but knowing you're going with. And that, in itself, is a kind of peace, to not walk alone. This is where purpose starts to unfold, not in arriving, but in flowing, not in a final destination, but in shared direction. You begin to understand that maybe the reason you were made a raindrop was not to reach a place, but to touch things along the way, to be part of the movement that brings life. How often do we search desperately for purpose, as if it's a fixed point, a singular calling, a final form we must achieve? But what if purpose isn't a place to stand? What if it's the path beneath our feet, the motion we choose, the people we carry and are carried by? You are not stagnant. You are not stuck. You are in motion. And that is enough. You pass through quiet places, forgotten forests, dry fields, cracks in the pavement, and wherever you go, you give. You don't even realize the impact, how your passing softens soil, how your presence awakens seeds, how you leave behind the shimmer of possibility. You don't notice, because you're just flowing, just being, just moving as you were meant to. But you are changing things. And maybe that's the most powerful kind of purpose, the kind we never see for ourselves. Maybe your greatest impact won't be the thing you aim for, but the quiet way you nourish what's around you, the child you encourage, the friend you listen to, the stranger you smile at, the kindness no one records, no one thanks you for, but that still echoes in someone's life long after you've passed by. To be a raindrop is to let go of recognition. You don't get to stay and see the seeds you awaken bloom. You don't get to count the ripples you've made. You simply move, trusting that movement is enough, trusting that the world remembers what the eye forgets. There are moments on the journey when you don't know if you're going forward or backward. The river twists. The path narrows. You feel lost. But even then, you are not outside the flow. Even in confusion, you are still part of the journey, still moving, still becoming. And isn't that what we all need to remember? That we don't need to see the whole map to be on the right path. That confusion isn't failure. That wandering isn't wasted. That motion itself is evidence of life. You are shaped by every rock you brush past, smoothed by friction, polished by time. Every encounter humbles you. Every turn invites surrender. You are no longer the sharp, defined thing you were at the beginning. You are softer, wiser. You've learned to let go of resistance. You've learned to bend. We live in a world that tells us to stand tall, to push forward, to assert ourselves. But maybe strength is found in the opposite, in bending, in flowing, in allowing life to shape us, rather than trying to shape life. You are fluid now, free, still small, still quiet, but full of momentum. You are part of something larger than yourself, a system, a symphony, a cycle. You don't need to understand every part of it to belong to it. You belong because you exist, because you move. In this chapter of the journey, there is no applause, no moment of grand arrival, but there is meaning, deep, unshakable meaning, in the fact that you are still going, still giving, still touching, still changing. And maybe that's enough. Maybe it's more than enough. What if we stopped asking, "What am I achieving?" and started asking, "What am I giving myself to?" What if the journey is not about building something permanent, but about pouring ourselves into what matters, even if it washes away, even if it doesn't last? Because not everything that matters endures, and not everything that endures matters. You, the raindrop, are not meant to last forever in the same shape. You are meant to keep moving, keep merging, keep becoming. There is beauty in this impermanence. There is strength in this surrender. So flow. Flow with grace. Flow with wonder. Flow with faith in the unseen. Let the journey shape you. Let it carry you. Let it remind you that even the smallest drop, moving in love, can become a river. You are not lost. You are on your way. You have moved. You have flowed. You've been carried by invisible forces, joined others in motion, touched places without lingering. But now, something changes. You slow. You land. The journey through the sky and the stream has brought you here, to a single quiet moment. It is not grand. There are no crowds, no applause, just earth, stillness, silence, and you. You are just a raindrop, and yet your presence shifts something. We often think we must be more to make a difference, that we must be bigger, louder, more visible, more accomplished. But what if the most powerful change begins with something small, something quiet, something overlooked? What if the world is not changed by noise, but by presence? You don't shout, you don't break anything open, you simply arrive. You land on a dry leaf that has waited silently for water. It does not thank you, but it drinks. You touch a crack in the soil, and the earth softens. You sink into a root system, and something ancient awakens. Something begins to grow, not because you demanded it, but because you showed up. And maybe that's what we've forgotten in our chase for impact, that real change isn't always visible. Sometimes the most powerful thing we do is simply be there, to show up fully, to bring who we are without needing to be more. One raindrop does not end a drought. It does not flood a field. It does not reshape a mountain. But it begins something. It reminds the earth that rain is possible. It signals the return of nourishment. It whispers, hope still falls from the sky. And sometimes that's all someone needs. We don't always get to see the fruit of our presence. We don't always see what grows because of our kindness, our resilience, our truth. But that doesn't make it less real. It doesn't make it less sacred. The world is full of people carrying silent pain, invisible burdens, quiet dreams, and your presence, your smallest act of courage, your briefest moment of honesty, might be the water they didn't even know they needed. A gentle word in the right moment, a listening ear, a decision to forgive, a refusal to give up. These are not small things. These are sacred. These are the drops that ripple outwards. Your landing is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of impact. You may never know the full extent of your influence, but that's okay. Raindrops don't watch the flowers bloom. They simply nourish and move on. They trust that something will grow. And maybe that's the invitation for us, to live lives of invisible influence, to stop asking, "What will I get from this?" and instead ask, "What might this give long after I'm gone?" Because not all impact is immediate, not all meaning is measurable. We live in a world obsessed with scale, followers, metrics, outcomes. But you, the raindrop, teach a different wisdom, that significance is not found in size, it's found in sincerity, in showing up as you are, in choosing to give what only you can give, however small. You don't need to be the storm. You don't need to be the flood. You don't need to be the one that changes everything. You only need to be willing to change something. The seed does not bloom because of the biggest raindrop. It blooms because it was loved enough, watered enough, touched enough times to grow. Your one act might be the final drop, or the first. You may never know which, but that does not change the value of your gift. We often ask ourselves, "Am I enough?" But maybe the better question is, "Am I willing?" Willing to show up, willing to give, willing to matter, even if no one sees. Because impact is not always about being seen, it's about being felt. You have landed, and now you become something new again. You are absorbed. You disappear into the soil. You lose your form. To the eye, you are gone. But below the surface, you begin something the eye can't see. A root grows deeper. A seed splits open. A stem reaches for the light. And isn't that true for us as well? We pour ourselves into relationships, into work, into art, into healing, and sometimes we wonder where we went. We feel like we've disappeared, like we've given so much that nothing remains. But something does remain, always. What you give never leaves the world. It becomes something. It lives on in the people you've touched, the hearts you've softened, the hope you've planted. You may feel invisible, but you are part of a larger becoming. To give yourself fully to a cause, to a person, to the world, is not to vanish, it is to transform. To trust that losing your form is not the same as losing your worth. You were never meant to stay a drop forever. You were meant to become part of the soil, the root, the flower, the fruit, to become part of the cycle that sustains life. So, if you ever feel small, remember the raindrop. If you ever feel unseen, remember its silent arrival. If you ever question your worth, remember that the smallest presence can carry the deepest meaning. You are not forgotten. You are not wasted. You are not too late or too little. You are enough because you are willing. And maybe that's what matters most. Not what we build, but what we become. Not how loud we are, but how deeply we touch. What if that smile you gave today softened someone's grief? What if your patience with a friend gave them the courage to keep going? What if the story you shared planted a seed of healing in a stranger's heart? You may never see it bloom, but you were still the water. So land, soften, give, disappear if you must. But know this, you are part of something that matters, not because of how big you are, but because of how real you are. And real things ripple. Real things root. Real things remain even when they can't be seen. You are the raindrop. You are enough. You gave yourself fully. You touched the world, not with noise, but with quiet grace. You fell, you flowed, you landed. You softened what was hard. You awakened what was sleeping. You nourished what was meant to grow. You were absorbed into the earth, disappeared from the surface, and to the eye you were gone. But you are not gone. You were never gone, because nothing real is ever lost. It only changes form. And now, slowly, invisibly, you rise again. It begins with warmth, a subtle shift. The sun touches the earth, and something stirs in the soil. What was once hidden begins to ascend. Molecule by molecule, you rise. No longer a drop, no longer a stream, lighter now, less visible, but not less real. You are becoming vapor, lifted upward by light. And maybe this is what it means to be renewed, not to go back to what you were, but to rise as something new, something free. You are no longer the raindrop who feared the fall, or even the one who flowed with purpose. You are something else now, something less defined, but more expansive. Isn't that the way of all true transformation? We break, we give, we grow, and then we release even that. We let go of the identity we once held, the roles we once played, the stories we told about who we were. We let go of the need to be seen. We rise not because we are reaching for more, but because we are ready to return, to become again. And this is the great paradox. The more you give yourself away, the more of yourself you find. You rise higher now, back through the sky, past leaves and branches, past wind and light, not to escape the world, but to rejoin the cycle. You are not rising to end the journey. You are rising to begin it again. Because the journey never ends. It only continues in new forms. We often think of life as a line, a beginning, a middle, an end. But what if life is a circle, a cycle? What if every ending is just another kind of becoming? What if every letting go is a quiet return? You do not fall only once. You fall again and again. Into love, into change, into purpose, into loss, into renewal. And each time you rise, you carry something new. A wisdom, a softness, a strength. There is no part of your journey that was wasted. Not the fall, not the fear, not the stillness, not the struggle. Every stage mattered. Every motion had meaning. And now you become part of the cloud again. Not the same cloud that once held you, but a new one, formed by memory, motion, and mystery. You do not remember every place you've been, but the world remembers you. The roots remember. The leaves remember. The soil, the seeds, the sky, all of it holds the trace of your giving. And maybe that's what legacy truly is. Not monuments or fame, but invisible echoes, quiet evidence that you were here, that you gave, that you mattered. You see, nothing you gave was lost. It only changed shape. The love you gave to someone who needed it, it became a decision they made when they felt strong. The patience you offered a child, it became the calm they carry as an adult. The tears you shed in silence, they softened the ground for someone else's growth. You rise now, not alone, but as part of a vast return. Millions of others rise with you. Drops that once fell in other places, in other times. You are not singular. You are part of something larger. A system. A story. A circle of becoming. You are not only yourself, you are everyone you've touched, every life you've moved, every change you helped begin. And in this rising, you are reminded nothing is wasted. Nothing is ever truly over. What ends in one form begins in another. What you release will rise again. In time, in others, in new and unexpected ways. You are no longer afraid of the fall. You know now that falling is not failure. It is part of the rhythm of life. You are no longer afraid of giving. You know now that the more you pour yourself out, the more deeply you become. You are no longer afraid of being small. You know now that the smallest acts hold the greatest power. You are no longer afraid of disappearing. You know now that presence does not depend on being seen. And you are no longer afraid of change. Because you are change. You are motion. You are becoming. You are part of a cycle older than time. You are the drop, and the flow, and the seed, and the sky. You are the question and the answer, the beginning and the return. You were never just a raindrop. You were a moment of the eternal, falling, flowing, giving, rising, again and again. And so you return, changed, softened, wiser, ready to fall again. Not because you must, but because you can. Because this is what love does. It returns. It continues. It gives itself away again and again, trusting that even the smallest offering matters. And now a new fall begins. Not as a repetition, but as a continuation. Not to start over, but to go deeper. So fall again with open hands, open heart, open soul. Fall again, not with fear, but with freedom. Fall again into this world that needs your presence more than you know. Because you are not separate from it. You are not outside the cycle. You are not here by accident. You are part of something infinite, and that, above all, is your purpose. To rise, to fall, to give, to become, again and again, forever. Just like